Hello and welcome to Raise the Bar, the Sky High and Fly Jump Camps podcast. I'm your host, Troy Haynes, and I'm here to introduce the second part of the Tyler Arroyo interview. Tyler's a young man who jumped 7.5 and 3/4 last year to qualify for the U.S. Olympic trials in the high jump. And when he went there to Eugene to compete, he made it to the final, and he didn't quite make it onto the team. But we're going to do part two, where we discuss the training and, those quantum leaps where he had gone from 7.2.5 to 7.5 and 3/4, which is quite a big jump in 1 year. And we'll talk to him about his training and how that all came about. So that's following up right after this on Raise the Bar. So all of a sudden, you're like you said, you're stepping up on the world stage. It's like that was something that I aspired to. My best jump was 222, and I think I jumped it to 7.4.5, whatever that would be, probably 225, and took one good jump at that. That was one of my best days that I remember. And part of my brain was doing what you're saying. I'm like, man, if I can, get up there, because I was thinking, 7.2, 7.3 is good, but it's like, yeah, there's nothing to sneeze at. But yet, when you get up to the major world competition, it seems like 7.7, 7.8 minimum. I don't even remember the last time in '84. The high jump was won at 7.8 3/4, and then '88 in Seoul, Korea, I think is when Charles Austin jumped 7.10.5 to win and set the Olympic record. And then, it's usually up there. 5 years ago when I watched Derek Drown win, I think he jumped 9 3/4.
Yeah.
I don't think he had any misses until after 9 3/4, which is one of the best performances ever, because he beat both Bondarenko and Barshim, which nobody had him on the radar. I don't think anybody was sitting there watching that going, hey, we got to watch out for Derek Drown. It was like typical Olympics, though. The guys that you think were going to win, didn't come through big, and I've noticed every time the bar went up and Drown kept making it, Barshim started getting shaky, which I'd never seen before. I've never seen him break technique. I saw one jump when he was barely off the ground, threw his head back early and bombed the jump. And I remember thinking, that must be what pressure feels like for him. I don't think I've ever seen that before. He usually he's not super consistent. He's fun to watch because he has misses scattered throughout if you watch him. But then he'll throw a jump at 7.11 that's like, you're like, oh my God,
Yeah.
he's like 4 inches. I keep waiting for him to jump 8.2, but he's getting past his prime here a little bit. What would you tell a young athlete that wanted to be, wanted to go and have success, both, starting at the high school level and like Tyler said, everybody talking out there, Tyler had his high school career. He went off to a 4-year, then he went back to a JC, then he went back to a 4-year school, had a lot of different experiences and teachers. What would you tell that young guy that wants to, keep climbing and getting better?
Yeah. I mean, I'd say always believe, always know that you have a shot at it. Like if you told me when I was in high school that I'd jump even 7 feet, I would have never in a million years believed you. So I think every year it's like with high jump especially, it's a super slow process of improving. But the more reps you get in, just over time without you even realizing it, you can, improve so much. So I'd say don't focus too much on the immediate results, but just know that you're going to get better as long as you put the work in.
Right. And then you were talking about your training. What I heard you mention was short sprints, plyometrics, had your jump days when you could have your jump days, and then you lifted, right? And those are the 4 pillars of your jumping. So if you don't mind sharing, the reason I'm asking is because I'm always in steal mode. I'm just like, tell me what you did, because I want to, find out what, matches with what I was taught and blah, 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 blah. So when you're doing your lifting, what were the mainstays of the program there? Squats, cleans, lunges. What did you have in your program?
No, I'm always happy to share, especially with people that are interested in it, especially because I always admire like coaches that are always trying to get better. So I guess the main things, at least for like lifting, I think for me, I personally believe like hang cleans is one of my favorites. I think it has the best effects on high jump, and especially for just being explosive. So that was my main one. Front squats and back squats are great. Jerks are good.
So just the push overhead part of the push, when you're saying jerk, I know there's a
yeah,
and then the jerk is putting it overhead, right? So kind of
just
like
the jerk part. Yeah,
pushing it over your head, right? Okay.
yeah. I generally separate those.
Yeah.
And I mean, I do those core lifts, and I guess one of my other philosophies is out of season doing more reps and doing like 3 sets of 10, and then as season progresses, lowering the reps and hiring the weight, and then by end of season or mid to end season, I'll usually do lower reps with less weight as well, and just focus on being super explosive and not really trying to gain any strength.
Did you go through any cycles? Like I know some athletes will go through. We talked with Aaron Washa, who was my first guest way back. He's got a site on Instagram called Wax On, Wax Off. He's a super great guy. He's a little guy. If you've seen him on Instagram, he does 72-inch box jump, and he's
wow,
like you, yeah, crazy, right? He's super explosive. He's not even a high jumper, but he was a long jumper. I think he did the high jump in high school, but he was more of a long jump. And then he's trying to make it in the NFL. He's almost 30. He just did a mini camp or something and waiting to see if anybody's going to pick him up. But he was talking about 12-minute or 12-week training cycles. And, with the same progression you were talking about, like 3 sets of 10, and then maybe 4 sets of 5 or 5 sets of 5.
Yeah, around that. Yeah, 6 usually. I usually do 6, but mine's not specific. I kind of just made it up over all the coaching that I've had.
But less reps, like you said. So a set of 10 and a set of 5 or 6, I'm guessing. And then when you said towards the end of the season, when you both lowered the number of reps and the weight, what kind of sets were you talking there? Like 3 sets of 10?
Yeah. It would depend. I'd usually do 3 sets of 4 or 4 sets of 4. And then I'd occasionally do like 4 sets of 2. Like when I'm really trying to peak.
Okay. Yeah, that goes much hand in hand with the stuff that I've learned. We had Aaron on Washa, and he was talking about an interesting idea that I don't know if you've heard of, but he was mentioning triphasic training. And the triphasic training, he talked about, eccentric, concentric, and then isometric lifts. And when I was in college at UCLA as a kinesiology major, they said nobody uses isometrics because the muscle's staying at the same length, right? And you don't want to train your muscle to stay and hold a position. You want to teach it to explode through a range of motion. And Aaron just shot that all down, said that was what you learned back in the 80s. Like I'm a grandpa, you're back in the 80s when you're in college at UCLA. This stuff is 30 years newer, younger, and he started talking about it. So it was interesting to me because he said his biggest gains were when he was going through his isometric part of the program, which would be, drop down into a deep squat and hold, right, with a decent amount of weight, and then come up, but don't come up all the way, and hold, that kind of stuff. So I find that really interesting. I haven't had a chance to practice. So I keep telling my athletes, I go, I don't usually have you guys do anything until I've tried it myself. And unfortunately, I'm getting too old to train for this kind of stuff. So, when I demonstrate now, I put the bar at 4 feet because I know I can make that. But what else do we have on the hook here? Tyler, I'm so thankful that you were gracious enough to spend your time with us. What else? I wanted to talk lifting, sprinting. What would you say to young athletes too? I'm constantly preaching with my kids visualization, right? Dwight Stones was one of the I would have to say one of the first that used to preach it and do it. Like if you watch his old films, you could see him, doing his lean progression, maybe his stride progression. Sometimes you could see him picture his arm drive and his knee drive, and I'm like, as I was a kid watching that, I'm like, somebody's like, what's he doing? I'm like, he's picturing, what he wants to do. And, I started learning about visualizing and then the power behind visualization. There's so many studies that have been done where people show improvement in their technique and their performance with just visualizing without even doing any other practice, and it's all over the literature. So I'm wondering if there's any special things that you do with visualizations, walkthroughs, run-throughs where you don't actually jump. I don't know, anything you have along those lines. Curious to hear.
Yeah. So I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm very big on visualization. I think that is a massive part of why I'm good at high jump. Basically what I'll do is the night before a meet, I will, an hour before I go to bed or so, I'll just listen to some music that I usually listen to before it meets, and I'll just visualize perfect form for 30 minutes to an hour and just get in the zone, think back on good meets I had and visualize the perfect form and what I specifically want to work on. That's just a meet ritual. I have to do that every night before a meet. And then when I wake up, get on the bus or whatever, however I'm getting to the meet, I'll usually have that, music on again and just visualizing, and I'll just keep going in and out of the zone, every hour or so I'll take a break, because it is mentally taxing always being in the zone. But I think visualization is huge. As far as practice with visualization, I'd say it's important to think of one to three cues or 1 to 3 things that you want to focus on. And right as you step up to your mark, picture yourself doing them all perfectly, and then go ahead and do your jump. But I think before every meet, it's big, and then before every jump, even you should do it.
Oh, I love it. Now I can quote you and tell my kids, it's not just me. I jumped 7.5 3/4, and he believes it too. What was the progression, if you don't mind, with you from your PR at 7.2.5 up to 5 3/4? Do you remember meets, and did you make one day, or was there a string of meets where that came together?
Yeah, it was a string of meets. So I had my first meet, ended up getting 225.
7.4.5. Okay.
Yeah, which was really exciting to me, because that's a massive PR. And I had some good attempts at 230 after, which was kind of mind blowing to me, just because it was such a big difference.
Right.
And then so I was just super excited. Then I had to meet 3 weeks later, I believe.
Right.
And I'm kind of a big believer in you need to do it twice in high jump to really solidify it. You can always have those fluke jumps.
Right.
So the next meet I ended up getting 226. And so after that, I was super excited, because I was like, oh wow, this is legitimate. I didn't just get a lucky fluke.
Right.
And then I had another meet the week later, ended up getting 228, which was my PR. 7.5 3/4. So it was, that was a crazy string within a month, and it kind of just all came in at once, going from 7.2.5 within a month period, or it felt like a month period. Right. Getting that PR.
Oh, amazing. Another question I had for you, just because I'm curious, is did you model yourself after anyone, or are you just you're the best Tyler? I remember when I was coming up, there's so much more stuff out here for you guys now. I mean, I'm bemoaning the fact that I'm an old man and all that, and I just think back, I can't even find any videos of myself. I've got boxes of videotapes that I'm still waiting to go through, because number one, I don't even have a VCR anymore, and number two, I'm trying to remember, did we have high jump? I mean, I know I filmed myself, I remember, but I can't even find anything, and yet I can go on Instagram and find jumps by everybody. And then if I text it or email it, if I text it to myself on my phone, if I text it to someone else with an iPhone, 9 times out of 10, it comes up and I can scroll it frame by frame, and I find stuff all the time where I'm like, oh my gosh, look what this guy does with his knee drive or whatever. So my questions are twofold, I guess, along that line. Is number one, as you're watching other people, do you look for things that you can use, or, was there some guy out there, like you're saying, maybe not a Dwight Stones or a Doug Nordquist, because it's kind of more old school, but somebody else that you were watching, you're like, oh my gosh, like I watched Brandon Stark. I don't know if you've seen him on Instagram. He's an Australian guy. But I love, he puts a lot of drills in his feed, and I'm just picking that stuff up all the time. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm going to train to do that, because there's certain elements that you can see as plain as daylight. Okay, we need to start doing that for sure. So anything like that pop up for you?
To be honest, I never really had any like specific person that I modeled after. I tend to like kind of just watch everyone and pick the things that I like from it. Okay. And I wasn't as big on video. My coach would sometimes show me stuff which was good. But yeah, I definitely could have been better about that, because I do think watching the elites video is important, and you can kind of pick things up. But I didn't really have anyone specific. Maybe one person my coach really liked that he would always show me was Torrey Harris. He just work on his penultimate step, because his penultimate step was so good. Mm-hmm. But that's the only one that can really come to mind. Otherwise, I just kind of pick and choose from different jumpers.
Right. Okay. And then this is my last question. I don't want to keep you all day, because I would. But if you, knowing what you know now, and you're, in 3 years, you're living here in California still?
Yep, you're living in California.
So you're still here now. In three years, the Olympics is 2024 is in LA. First time in 40 years, right?
I think it's 2024 is Paris, 2028 is LA.
Well, that might be too long. All right, so throw the LA part out of there. I can edit it out later as how dumb I am. If 3 years from now, are you ready to go at it again? You think you can hang in there for 3 years and try for not just making it to the trials, but make it on to the U.S. Olympic team 2020?
Yeah, absolutely. That is the goal now. The goal out of college was to just make trials. And then, after this year, I just came to the realization that I have a shot at the Olympics. So I'd be mad at myself if I didn't go for it while I can and while I'm still young. So I'm definitely going to go for it. Facility use was just so difficult this year, just bouncing around to random places that I could find. So I found a good setup for next year. I'm going to have a nice facility to train at and coach at too. So I'm super excited to just really, really grind and focus on it this next year, and then all the way till Paris.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, with jumps like 7.5 3/4, start jumping, 7.6, 7.7, all of a sudden you're at, the national championships, and I'm sure they're going to start talking to you about, maybe traveling and jumping at some of these other meets. I always heard things about that when I was in college, and I just didn't have the, I don't know, the wherewithal or whatever. I remember thinking, well, you're only jumping 7.2. I have no idea how I would travel on my own or do that, and you hear, well, you go over to Europe and there's just money, almost they're throwing money at you out of the stands, because they love track and field over there. One of the things I keep moaning about over here is the fact that, track and field's like the redhead stepchild of all the sports,
Oh yeah. And field is even on top of that.
Yeah. Every 4 years, everybody gets into it because of the Olympics. But most people, when you sit there and you go anything about track and field, they might know a sprint here or there, but they don't, there's so many events, but it's covered poorly over here. And a lot of our rich traditions have just, seem to have gone away. So, but it'd be awesome to see that name Tyler Arroyo pop up on Well, I was one of those people who used to find the results in the paper, so you'd be looking at some meet over in Stuttgart, or whatever, and you'd see a name, you're like, oh, that guy jumped 7.5. That's pretty cool. It's some indoor venue, who knows where. But it's awesome. You've got all these opportunities opening up for you, and a shorter window, because you went 5 years and now you get 3 years, but 3 years is plenty of time, right? To get yourself ready.
Yeah. But like with that COVID year, I was super pissed and or I don't know if I was pissed, but I was, upset and sad about it. But
right.
Who knows? I probably wouldn't have gotten, that whole extra year of training to jump as high as I did. And I might've just hung it up there. So might've given me the opportunity to keep it going.
They say God works in mysterious ways, right? It must
yeah.
plan for you to give you that extra year of training so you could jump and make it to the trials. Well, listen, Tyler, I'm going to let you go, but I would be honored to both stay in touch with you, number one, and just follow your career from afar. But since we're here in California, shameless plug, I just want to get down there and see you jump one of these days. So we'll have to see if we can work that out. If you're okay with that, I would, like you said, I'm always into stealing and watching and applying, anything and everything. And if I had a chance to watch someone who's been, to the U.S. Olympic trials, I've had my chances in the past. I've trained and jumped against, some of those people we're talking about. I've jumped against Doug Nordquist, when he was still at his peak, able to jump 7, 8 3/4, and the things that I've learned from him still are just like etched in my brain. I've never seen anybody run a faster curve leaning at a higher degree of angle than I've ever, with Doug Nordquist. When I watch him, I still try to train my jumpers to do that to this day, and so I'm always looking for those things. But all right, we are going to let Tyler go. Again, thank you so much for your time, your energy, your enthusiasm. And wow, that huge jump, going to the trials and knocking on the door of the Olympic Games. We're wishing you the very best as you train for the next 3 years to go to London. Is it London or Paris? Paris. I'll get it right one of these days. Okay. And Paris should be a lot of fun. It should be some great scenery, and it'd be great to see you get over there, Tyler.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, always good to talk high jump. You don't get to do it too often.
Right. Well, that's what we're all about here on Raise the Bar. So, all right, we're gonna let Tyler go. Thanks again, Tyler. We'll talk soon.
Thank you. Yeah, have a good one.
All right. And that'll wrap it up with Tyler Arroyo's part 2. We just got to hear about all of Tyler's training and the story of making it to the Olympic trial final in the high jump. He's a young man, and it's a short turnaround, 3 years. And so we're looking forward to seeing if he can't make it onto the squad next time. If he continues to improve the rate he's been going these last 2 years, then look out. So thanks for joining us here on Raise the Bar. I'm Troy Haynes, your host, and we will talk with you next time.